I'm good. Yeah, just finished my placement year, so been doing nothing for the last week.
I saw that. Was it Chase Morgan, right?
Yeah, I was at JP Morgan for the
J-
last year. Like it was like a software engineering placement thing. So I took like kind of a gap year in my degree, so I'm finishing my third year next year.
So you did your first 2 years and then you did a placement year. How was that?
Yeah,
How was
basically.
that?
Yeah, it was good. I actually got to do real work, which was nice because I've been doing like theoretical like math stuff for ages because I'm doing my degree in maths, obviously. It's just nice to see some applications in the real world.
Mm. I think
Yeah, it's good.
lots of people wouldn't be able to say that though. It's like when people make the transition between university to work, it's like everything I learned doesn't apply at all. So
Yeah, I mean, no, that's literally me as well because half of the stuff I'm learning, like all the pure maths, has no like there's literally no application in the workplace, but yeah, it's good to apply like the transferable skills, I guess.
mm. So you did that for a whole year?
Yeah, basically. It was a bit more than a year actually. Like I started in June, like last year, and then I finished like July, so it was a bit. It's like 12 months to 14 months or something.
Was that extended because of COVID or just it was
No,
for fun?
I got to extend because I had nothing else to do because usually it would end at the end of May, and then you can have the choice if you want to like extend into the
Mm.
summer. So I just extended for like 6 weeks. I didn't want to do the whole summer because
You
it's too
needed
much.
you
Need a
want
break.
you wanted to chill as well. But I guess the like something like a placement year is something that you choose to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically I go to Bath, so they're quite known for like doing their like placement years. So you usually apply in second year for it. And like everyone's literally just applying while the exams are going on and stuff. So like you do like 20 applications and get 10 rejections or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, for me, I was quite lucky because in first year I applied for like a scholarship with JP. So that includes like a placement year as well. So kind of got it early. So it was really chill for me.
So you got a scholarship as well as a placement year.
Yeah, so I'm technically still on like that with them,
Hmm.
and I'll be going back with them like after I finish my degree. It's a good
How
way for them to get people on
yeah.
board.
How many years are you required to work with them? Is it
Um, I was only required to do the placement with them. I don't think I'm required to take up their offer for next year, but
mm,
like I want to obviously work for them,
I
so
think
I'll definitely be joining.
yeah. I mean I think the placement year gives you like kind of like a good taster of what you can expect to do. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
but
What
I
about
mean
you? Are you studying in the UK as well?
I am studying in Malaysia, but I did an exchange year in the UK. So the whole
Oh,
of last year I was in Birmingham.
that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. It was also a lot cheaper, so which
Oh,
is
yeah.
the main reason I did it. But I'm really glad. I'm really glad. It was a really good experience. Um,
That's cool. So are you in your second year? Or you've
just
just finished your second year?
yeah, you are my senior by a year, but next year we'll be in the same year.
That's so true because I
yeah,
had that extra year. That's
yeah.
nice. You
But
don't
you're
have to be a 2020 graduate. Like, if all of my friends are literally graduating this year.
I guess that's a blessing in disguise. Like if you graduate this year, it's a bit of a bummer to
It
put it
is,
short.
yeah. I feel bad.
Uh, um, but yeah, I'm really glad I did a exchanger because it was cheaper. And I did want to study in the UK initially, but it's a bit tough given the fees for international students.
Oh, I know. I've heard about all of that. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
but I didn't get a chance to visit Bath though. I know Bath is Bath or Bath.
Yeah, Bath. I mean, it depends on your accent. Like, people up north say Bath,
Yeah.
and then because I'm from London, it'll be Bath, but whatever suits you. But yeah, it's
Mm.
a really touristy town. Like it's got like the Roman baths in the middle. I haven't actually visited it. Like I've been there for like 2 years and I've still not gone to the tourist attractions. But yeah, it's free entry for students, so I should probably check it out. I'll probably go in third year.
It, Wait, so your placement year, that wasn't in Bath. It was somewhere else. It was in London.
No, I was in London. So I think the headquarters for the London office is in Canary Wharf. So I work between there and Blackfriars. There's like another office there. But yeah, I also like live in London. So like my family are here. So I'm literally staying with them right now. So yeah, this is kind of like home for me because I moved out of Qatar as soon as I started uni.
So your whole family moved, right? I guess
exactly.
you were the youngest, right?
Oh no, like I have 3 brothers. So like I have one older brother who's a year older than me, so he was already at uni, and then I have 2 younger ones. One of them's like 15, the other one's 7 or 8. I think he's 8.
Are they all still in Qatar?
No, they're all here. So like literally all in the house right now. So we're under lockdown together.
Okay, but so your family isn't based in Qatar anymore?
No. Okay. Yeah, my dad, like he had his job there, so he moved. He actually worked in Africa after that. So like there's this place called Togo. Yes. I don't know if you've heard of it, but like it's a really small like country in between Nigeria and like Ghana or something. What was it? I can't remember the other 2 places, but yeah. So it was really, but we ended up staying here because like there weren't many schools and stuff for like my younger brothers, so they came back here.
It'd be kind of funny to tell friends that I studied in Togo. What is Togo?
Where is that? See, like when I first moved to Doha, when I was about like 8 or something, I'd never heard of Qatar or Doha either, like back then. And then like my dad moved to Togo, and I'm like, I've never heard of Togo until you moved there.
Let's just keep moving to places that I don't know where they are. Let's move to Antananarivo, Madagascar.
Never heard of that.
Yeah. First of all, before we go on, I'd just like to thank you for making the time. I know you're pretty busy. I mean...
Oh, not really.
What are you...
Not anymore.
Yeah. You just finished last week already, you said?
Yeah, literally last Friday was my last day. So I've not been on my computer for like the last week. I've just been a hermit. Just not like really done much, but got to have that time off.
That's pretty interesting because like once people have time off, like the computer is the only thing they use. What have you been up to then?
Not much. Just like obviously at home as usual. I haven't really been out much, even though they've lifted a lot of restrictions in the UK. I still don't trust like the government, so I've just been like chilling, watching dramas, watching
Korean dramas.
Yeah, I do watch a few Korean dramas, also a few animes.
I've been watching Kaguya-sama, but the season just finished. Do you know that one?
Is that
Love is War? That's that one.
Oh,
no?
yeah. I think I've probably seen it. I've seen literally all of Netflix's options.
Demon Slayer is really good.
Oh, yeah. That's next on my list. That's next. I've been watching like Hunter x Hunter with my young. Me and him kind of have a bonding time where we watch like an anime together.
I completely relate. It's like I don't usually watch anime, but if I'm watching it with my siblings, then I'll watch anime.
Exactly.
But yeah, what I was getting to, thank you for making the time. I know we haven't really talked for the last 2 years, probably, and like,
since the committee, basically.
Since the committee with Sarah Wong, with Beth.
Yeah. Literally, seems like ages ago. We've come so far since then.
We have. Would you say, how different are you? Would you say? Just, I can only, you can only really describe yourself based on how you see things, and people from the outside will see you differently. But
I don't know. Actually, I feel the same-ish. But yeah, I probably asked other people, like you haven't seen me in 2 years, obviously. So would you say I'm pretty different?
I've talked to you for like 10 minutes. And also besides. Like, I don't think we ever had the opportunity to like sit down before you left.
That's true. I used to just delegate stuff to you guys all the time. Just
hey,
you can hat on.
One of the first things Sarah did was like, can you make me a video? What's it for? Oh, Meshaal's birthday. It's like, oh.
Yeah, literally.
Right.
You barely even knew me as well, so you probably were like, oh yeah, like, happy birthday.
I just wanted to make friends.
I should look back on that. I think I still have it.
It seems that you're still in touch with a bunch of people from DC.
Yeah, sure. Especially in my year. Like, me and Sarah, we actually got a bit closer after A-levels as well, because she goes to uni in Brighton. Mm-hmm. Well, she's in Malaysia now, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she and I, she came to Bath a few times, and I went to see her in Brighton, so that was cool.
Brighton is by the beach. Yes.
Exactly, in the south. Mm. But yeah, and also Nazreen and Beth and stuff. I haven't actually met up. Actually, I think maybe I did a few, like last year or something. I met them in when I visited Qatar, like the first year of uni, I think. I came to Doha in the winter, so I met people then.
And, yeah. And now it happens where everyone leaves Qatar, and then their families leave Qatar, and then like there's no like one common thing that brings people together anymore, because
everyone's kind of all over the world, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but wait, so you moved to Qatar when you were 8, and you lived there until you were 18 or so?
Yeah, so literally 10 years I spent over there. So since like year 4 or something till 6th form.
That was still arguably some of the most formative years of any person's life.
Oh, for sure. I'd say I was probably more influenced by there than I was when I was like, 7 or whatever in the UK. But I used to come to the UK like every summer, so I still had pretty close links.
Everyone
I have a lot of family here.
Everyone has the same story. Like if they moved to Qatar early, oh, summer, we'd go back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you find it? I know this is probably like a question that's 3 years old, but did you find it difficult at first making friends, or not really?
Oh, when I started uni, that was like my biggest fear when I first started uni. Like I was like, what are the people gonna be like? I don't even know if I'll relate to anyone. But then when I actually went, it was actually quite nice, I think, because I stayed in a flat with a lot of international students, and I didn't actually realize before I went, but like Bath has a lot of international people coming in, because they have this course called International Management, which attracts everyone. So I had a lot of people from like random places, even though it wasn't Doha, it was like European schools, international schools. So like, I guess they have a similar vibe. Like it doesn't even matter if it's an international student vibe. Yeah. There's like a whole thing. It's a separate thing.
Absolutely.
But even like a few UK students I got close with as well. And like I kind of rediscovered my own UK side, because obviously I was taken out of the UK and I had like friends when I was younger. And obviously since they've gone through like high school here, they're completely different now to me if I would have gone through high school here as well. So, or secondary school, I should say.
Do you find?
Yeah.
So that makes you, does that make you does it make it a bit more difficult to relate with them?
Yeah, a little bit. So, for example, I have a neighbor that actually still lives the same, like down the road from me here. So this is my old house that I moved away from, and like, we're back here. So they are literally my age, and I was really close to them. We used to play together like when we were younger, and then obviously I moved away and then came back. And actually we had a lot of similarities, which was really weird. So that kind of gave me hope, saying like, even though I've been in a different place, there's still things you can relate on, even from when you were younger and stuff. So yeah, well, it's different for everyone.
What are the differences though that you realized?
I guess like definitely that a lot of people aren't as open when they grow up here. There's probably a lot of like I guess that they're not as friendly. Well, I wouldn't say like friendly, but like just not as like, approachable as an international student. Because like we're used to like interacting with different people, and they're very much like, they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much like, interacting with different people, and they're very much not apprehensive, maybe a little apprehensive, like closed off at first, but it takes time for them to like actually, kind of get comfortable and stuff.
It's just they haven't been exposed to them to the level that we were. Like it became a norm for us, whereas for them it's like there's still that difference,
Exactly. And like I think there was probably a little bit more bullying in the UK than there is in, like, for example, Doha College, for sure. So yeah, that's what I've realized. And like a lot of, especially in London, so I think this is the difference, especially in my area, there's like a lot more disruptive behavior because there's people of different backgrounds. So different, like maybe people coming from council estates and also people coming from like a bit more well-off families. But in Doha, obviously everyone lived pretty comfortably, for sure, because everyone's like an expat or whatever. So that's the main difference.
Would you?
I'd say.
The way, I mean, yeah, I only realized how different I was once I moved back here and I tried to interact with the people that actually grew up here, and it's like I could understand them, but I was just, I mean, of course I could understand them, but it was almost like we were from different worlds, It's like because our backgrounds are so different. So I guess my question to you is like, would you have changed the way you were brought up?
No, I wouldn't have changed it. I'd say it's always a plus. It's not like you're taking anything away. You're like adding stuff, So I'd say it was very helpful to me. And I feel like I have more insight into like both cultures, I guess, even though I'm not fully, like, I guess, fluent in that culture. I don't know. I think about it like that. Like, I don't know. It's just
it's a good word to use.
I'm not completely a UK person. Like, I don't really like grime and all that stuff.
That's the most characteristic of a UK person. Do you like grime?
I don't. Yeah. And then I kind of envision myself how it would have been like here, and I don't think I would have liked it as much. Or maybe I wouldn't have had as much opportunity to have exposure to different stuff. Yeah.
It's always a difficult.
I don't think I would have been inherently different if I had a different upbringing. I still probably would have been interested in pursuing the things I'm pursuing now, even like regardless of where I was going to school.
I guess it's a difficult question to answer. It's like, how would you have been different if you didn't grow up where you did grow up? It's like,
no, I mean, I ask myself this all the time because I see people that have like grown up here, and it's just like, wow, what would I have been like? Would I have ended up like a chav? Like, what would I be doing?
You'd be a roadman.
Would I be like some sort of roadman? Would I be wearing hoop earrings and leather jackets?
But I mean, of course, we're saying this not to necessarily say that like one is better than the other, but
yeah, there's no like better thing. But I think who you are as a person makes a big difference to how you take in your surroundings.
But also, people can say that who you are as a person changes based on, well, debatable, but who you are as a person changes on the situation that A, you were brought up in, and B, that you are currently in. I, for one, grow to appreciate the fact that I grew up somewhere international. Like, I appreciate that more every single day. It's like, sometimes when I'm talking to people and like, in some ways you got to be careful of the what you talk about. Because like, for one thing is like, being in DC, everyone goes to like different countries all the time, right?
Exactly.
It's like, it's kind of taken for granted. But when you like approach someone that you got to bear in mind that they don't necessarily have that experience. That's just an example of what I have to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but it was pretty fun to explain certain things to people that they didn't understand, especially when I first joined uni. They'd ask me about like, oh, like, what's the Middle East like? Is it like desert and just stuff? Do you just like live in the desert? Well, technically, yeah, but like, no. It's just malls. It's basically just shopping malls and stuff. But yeah.
What are the things that you have to explain? Or is it mostly just people's conceptions of the Middle East?
Yeah, I guess so. It's like I have to kind of say, oh yeah, have you ever been to Dubai? it's basically like Dubai. But if they haven't and they don't even know, they haven't even heard of it, or like some people actually have never, like I met someone, they never left the UK and never been on a plane. And there's a lot of people like that here as well. So it's very it's a really new concept even to explain a different culture. I mean, even for me, like in the UK, I would have had like, because I'm Pakistani originally, I would have had that kind of background anyway. But then, yeah, so it's just even worse like that. But yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry,
Oh,
you just
sorry.
cut out a bit.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask, how has that in fact affected the people you hang out with necessarily? It's like that.
I mean, kind of. I guess it would like subconsciously, but at the same time, I'd always try, even regardless of who the person is, I always try and like approach them, be friendly, strike a conversation, you know. Like I think it's always useful to try and like make the effort, even if you might not necessarily see yourself being friends with that person.
Yeah, but what I mean by like hang out with is like the people within your circle of friends.
Yeah. I think for me it's mostly based on who is around me at that time. So obviously I got closer with my flatmates. And I think that was kind of bad in a way because I didn't really also like join too many societies and stuff in the beginning. And then I only did that like second year. So I ended up just kind of being friends with like my bubble of flatmates. And then maybe second year I joined like societies and stuff because I had a maths degree as well. So I was like focused on that. And then had a couple of friends in maths, which are mainly guys because of the demographics of like my degree. So yeah, it was definitely based on like maybe just convenience of who was around me at the time.
Was there a point where you made that conscious like there was a conscious thought process where you're like, okay, maybe I need to start to look outside of my convenient circle right now?
Yes, for sure. For sure. Like second year, I was like, okay, I'll just join ISOC, like the Islamic Society in our uni, because it was actually very diverse. The thing with Bath is that it's quite a white kind of campus. So like there weren't many, like I guess there were international students, but there weren't like any, because in London it's very multicultural, right? And I'm used to that because I'm used to that part of the UK and there's like loads of brown people, loads of people from Caribbean and all that stuff. So then going there, I was just like, where is everyone? And then I joined ISOC and like, obviously you have some commonality there, regardless of like, you know, where you're from and stuff. And that was nice. And I made a few friends from there. And then like, I guess, I don't know, I just got used to the fact, like, I didn't really try to make too much of an effort, but like the people that responded well, I just kind of made the effort with them.
I always admire you because you like, I know, as someone that just sees you like, you know, from time to time and not, in a way, not too close to you, right? It's like you always have such a chill attitude to you. Like when I think of the word chill, it's like, yeah, Meshaal probably personifies that trait.
It's the epitome of that word.
Do you think that of yourself, or?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty chill, but like, yeah, I mean, just like going with the flow, I guess. I just take what comes at me in terms of like uni and stuff. I don't know. I do have passionate stuff about like my degree and stuff, but not about anything other than that, if you know what I mean. Like I'll get heated about certain things.
But I guess, okay. What sort of things do you get heated on? I was going to assume, and I was like, you know, just ask her.
I don't know, like, just things like...
Everything you post on Instagram.
Yeah, basically, just shit like that. Like, the only thing I get really heated about is just injustice and, like, politics. But not politics in the way, like, I hate someone from a certain, like, political background. It's just literally just the sole things that don't make sense. I'm like, why is this happening kind of stuff. Yeah.
I've seen some of your posts and I mean that's like one of the reasons that I reached out to you in the first place, because I think I'm just a fan of talking to people, discussing, sitting down with people. It's like if you chat with someone, all you see are words, and that's.
Yeah, I hate messaging.
Yeah.
It's my personal thing where I can't message people. Like I can call them and like I can talk face to face like I am now, but I feel like I could never express like everything properly through like texting.
Which means quite a lot to me that you did spend the time to like write out a proper reply, and then you're like, you know what? Was there any hesitation on your part, or when I reached out to like, do you want to call?
No, like I was like, oh, finally get to like say something about something like this. But no, it was good. I like talking to people, especially if there's like not a disagreement, but like a little debate, obviously. Yeah, so I will take the time when it's something I know more about, or like something that I'm interested in, which was kind of both of those things.
Are there no societies in your university that kind of advocate for this sort of thing, like informal debate or like even formal debate?
Yeah, there is the debate society, but like
they suck and they're white. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that, and also I don't know. I never tried to join it. I feel like there's a lot more jargon there, a lot more like political kind of atmosphere, I guess. And I don't like people that nitpick on certain irrelevant points. And that's a personal thing I don't like about debating, which a lot of people do, is like the type of nitpicking you do just to invalidate a point that might be more important than what you're nitpicking kind of thing. And I've experienced a lot of that because I don't know if you were in MUN at school.
No.
Did you ever do that?
I avoided it like the plague, except as a photographer.
No, I mean, I joined it like, and I ended up being a chair, so I didn't do much of the debating after a while. But like, yeah, some of the people that were just there to like invalidate, like it's kind of your job if you're kind of opposing someone, you want to like tear something down, you can do that. But yeah, it's very ruthless. I feel like you kind of avoid solving the bigger issue when. Yeah. It's
actually really tough if you want to do it properly.
It's like a whole skill. It's a whole like thing.
Yeah. What I like to engage in is, take away all the etiquettes and all the like the whatever, you can only talk for 7 minutes and you need to have a point and a rebuttal and no, just take away the structure. What I want is an informal discussion. Informal. Let me listen to people, right? Let me try to understand where they're coming from, and let them try to understand where I'm coming from.
Exactly.
Which is what I'm trying to do right now. Okay.
All right.
Let's get into it. So, okay, do you wanna set out what we were talking about before we get into it?
Yeah, sure. I guess like what you asked me was about, like bias in machine learning and data science. So like if, for example, the Amazon hiring app, which preferred men over women based on the training data it was given, you kind of made the point saying, how do we know that is because of a bias on the part of like the hirer, or it was just inherently that maybe men's applications would be better, right? Mm-hmm. Was that your point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess that's what started off the conversation, and then I kind of went through explaining why it's like with machine learning, the whole kind of point is it's learning based off of human behavior. So it will kind of learn based off of what the hirer does in the past based on the training data, and that's what kind of causes maybe men to be preferred over women in that hiring procedure. So it's not like you can really deduce any kind of like fact that, oh yeah, maybe these applications are just better and more suited to the role than the hirer actually just preferring it for some subconscious reason. It might not even be like a good reason. It might be just like, oh, like they're probably better at the job because of this kind of perception I have, you know? And that's kind of like machine learning uses the behavior rather than actually like coming out with something that's going to have someone that's better for the job, basically.
Mm. Wait, what do you mean by that?
So I guess like based on the historical data, so with machine learning, you're going to give it like a whole set of this data in the past, and like there's probably like, let's just say there's this human person who's hiring people and he's judging them.
I believe that
So,
as a person, you can only be human. Sorry, carry on.
yes, exactly. It's not an alien. It's not like a animal. So yeah, this guy is basically he has his own decision making process, and he's looking at these applications, and obviously as a human you're looking at them, you're like taking loads of things to consideration, right? So you kind of look at it and think, oh yeah, like they've got this uni, they've got blah blah blah, they got these qualifications, but then you'll obviously look past that and think, okay, like will I enjoy working with this person, like, you know, am I going to get along with them? And there's always things at the back of your mind as well. So you got to really think about how humans make these decisions before you think about what the machine does, right? So based on that kind of decision making process, this person's going to like go through all these applications and like prefer certain things, you know, even if it's subconscious and you're not even aware of it as well. So then that is what data is produced when a human's doing it. And obviously you also take into consideration that maybe there's not as many women in that time that have applied for that job for various reasons, like could be social, could be cultural, could be like maybe they're from a young age they weren't encouraged to apply for a certain role in STEM. And then the machine will use all that data and like pick up on all the patterns, right? And sometimes those patterns might not even be like conscious to you, and you might not even understand why it's picking certain patterns because it's like kind of learning based off of what it's given.
Okay, so just to be clear, one of the patterns you think one of the patterns you're referring to is that it tends to prefer men over women.
Yes. So it will pick up on things like gender. So basically all this data has attributes, right? So that could be gender. It's like what school you went to, what like maybe coding languages, you know, like I'm just kind of thinking of examples. And then it'll basically make decisions based on those, and it will take those into account. And then you can also choose in your like modeling, like which ones to ignore, which ones to like kind of like have a heavy weight on. Mm-hmm. So I guess it depends also on the modeling, but yeah, there's usually a standard model across a lot of these machine learning techniques, but they'll basically just pick up on whatever patterns there are, like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of men that got into Amazon for some reason, so I'm going to start purposefully just excluding this group because I've been trained by the previous data to just like pick men because of this. So they end up like just kind of excluding things like that were common in women. And even after they basically switched off, there's like the attribute for gender. So you can turn that off and say, ignore gender. It's like genderless now. Even then they will pick up on certain things like, you know, words and stuff. Like there's algorithms that like you pick up on words like that are gendered, and they'll use that as well to like exclude it because of the data that it was given.
It was really quite striking. Like I did read those articles that you sent me. It's like one of the words like is like they would tend to prefer resumes with the word executed, and what was the other one? Like completed or finished. Like these are male words. I guess the biggest pushback, not even pushback, the biggest point that I'm trying to understand, right, is like, okay, the process that you explained without the machine, it's a guy, maybe not even a guy, someone reviewing resumes, right? It's a human choice where they're taking every attribute into account, and then but it's a very human choice. Whether it's, I don't know, not just one resume, it could be thousands, right? What I read is that they reviewed 10 years of resumes. So that's 10 years of human choice. And what I don't understand is those, I'm assuming that you would accept that those 10 years of human choice. I hope we'll assume that people were not consciously trying to discriminate against anything.
It's not conscious.
So, like, the thing that I don't understand is that you're putting in 10 years of human choice, and like you're putting it into a machine, and the machine will only learn from the data that you put in, the patterns that you put in. And I'm just saying, like, I guess my biggest point is I don't think that the data being put in is wrong because it skews towards men. Yeah. So I don't understand why it's such a big deal that people think it's a bias, because what you're just doing is reflecting, the machine is just literally doing what the humans did. So what do you say to that?
I mean, I agree with you completely. It's literally just reflecting the human choice over the last 10 years, which says more about the choices over the last 10 years than it does about the machine.
Okay, so
in my opinion,
you go.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, like, I think machine learning and all this artificial intelligence, people give it way too much credit than what it is, right? It's literally just trying to reflect what it's being taught, right? So I guess it says more about, what the hiring process was like in the last 10 years. And you probably have to look deeper into that and think, okay, what's the context of what things were like in the last 10 years? Like maybe Amazon, maybe not many women applied for these jobs, which, that makes sense as well. There's loads of reasons why they weren't applying for those jobs. So there's not enough data for women applying to even make those decisions properly. And then you have to also think about the people that chose, like, the people for these jobs. Maybe they did choose more men, and like there's an overwhelming majority, so that ends up being kind of replicated in the machine. And obviously a machine can't think why they're doing it. They'll just pick up on the pattern and think, okay, there's this pattern here, and I'm going to make this link to this link. So men are better, so I'm going to just like kind of exclude women completely. And that should give you a better output.
I don't know if it's as simple as you're I know you're simplifying, but they just don't look at just the gender attribute. They look at the range, right?
Exactly. They'll look at all the attributes. But like with the machine, right, it simplifies those decisions, obviously, because it's using an algorithm. It's like using this decision-making kind of algorithm. And it makes those kind of really weird links. And sometimes, like, the thing with machine learning that scares people is that it'll kind of come up with these patterns in like its output that you wouldn't even like consider. Like there'll be really weird ones, like probably even like crazy ones that you were like, okay, how does that even link?
Do you have any in mind?
The machine will pick up on it, right? Because it's just kind of looking at all of these different attributes, kind of looking at all this different data and thinking, okay, I'm just going to link these two things together.
Do you have any examples of that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. I guess that one that you talked about earlier in the article, where it's just like those gendered words, like executed, like you wouldn't think that in male applications they use a certain word more than female ones. So maybe you'll find new things about the way that the application process was like being run before, based off of what the machine kind of outputs. And maybe like the machine kind of decides, oh yeah, maybe like this one word is used a lot in really good applications, like, and it could be a really weird word, like, but maybe there's something that there's a weird trend. It could just be like a random trend, like, oh, the color blue was in a lot of these applications. So like, I'm going to exclude all other colors because this is what kind of gives me the best output. And you have to give it like what's it called? You have to give it a goal. So obviously there's a goal at the end of whatever they're doing. You want to produce, so whoever Amazon accepts for their applications, right? You want to replicate that acceptance. And there's probably a bunch of different margins that they compare it to. So obviously it'll be like, has it been accepted in the past, or is it similar to applications that have been accepted in the past? And there's a lot of issues that could come from that. So like maybe maybe like what you needed in the last 10 years for an applicant has changed significantly. So you need to update the goal, right?
Okay. I don't know exactly how I would need to look more into the like actual way Amazon did it.
Yeah, sure.
Because like what I know of is just the articles that Amazon that were about Amazon. It's just okay. It seems to me that the problem is that people didn't like the results that the AI was giving them, especially in the case of Amazon.
Yeah.
And so, okay. I'm struggling to like say what I think.
How about, let me just give you another random example of machine learning, just like a completely separate one. You can better understand. But basically, like when I first started learning about it, I went on this website called Kaggle, and they have a bunch of these competitions where you can learn machine learning in tutorials and then you apply it to like a problem. So one of the most basic ones that they give you is this house pricing thing. So basically what you want to do, there's like a bunch of historical data on houses and how they're priced, right? So you have like all these attributes. So based like maybe number of rooms, does it have like a swimming pool, does it have this? And you can pick those attributes, right? So like it could be anything like how big is the garden, blah, and then like how big is the square footage, and also like maybe how many bedrooms. So like the most important ones you'd pick would probably be like number of bedrooms and like the square footage or something like that, right? So you need to pick those attributes that are important to the machine model. And there's these they call them black box models, right? So you kind of put it through this thing and then it spits out like the price, right? So you've got all this training data, which is all the historical data of like how houses were priced in the past. You put it through the machine, it learns based off of that data, right? And then you give it a new set, right? You give it like a new set of attributes. So like, oh, there's a house with 3 bedrooms.
So a new case you're presenting a new case.
Yeah, new case. So then you put that through the same machine, which is learned based off of all that training data, and then that spits out the price that it would give it. And that's probably a good application of machine learning because it's something that has a lot of very concrete attributes, if you know what I mean. So like number of rooms is very like numerical, and like the square footage and stuff. There's like clear cut correlations between those things and how the house is priced. But there's not really much outside influence. Maybe like things like a swimming pool, things like really niche things that's kind of a bit weirder.
Like how loud is the house at night outside?
Yeah, I mean, you can think of all these different examples. Can I have pets there? Like, where is it located? Like, do people like that location? There's loads of other stuff that's more like qualitative.
But I guess when it comes to machines, like the only thing you can give it is quantitative.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if there's a certain case, right, you got to think of where you want to apply machine learning. And I think that's the most important thing. So like, automated driving, like basically cars that can drive themselves. You've probably seen and heard a lot about it, but yeah, that needs a lot of training data, and that sort of stuff can actually be simulated in like a virtual kind of reality. You can make a virtual kind of like racetrack or like a virtual city where that car can like practice driving. It won't kill anyone or whatever, and then you can kind of get enough data in there to like apply it to a real car. And a lot of that can be done right with machine learning. But then it comes when you try and go to like a human, like a very human application, like applying for a job, right? And there's a lot of things that like depend on why you get picked for it and stuff like that.
All the nuances that can't necessarily be.
There's so many nuances, and also things like using machine learning to predict like who's a criminal, or like predict who will do something. You know, like psychological stuff where there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of social context, there's a lot of like things you need to be aware of as a human. Like you need a bit of empathy, you need some like maybe emotions there. Like you can't just make any it's not just pattern based. It's so nuanced that you can't apply that in a machine learning kind of thing. I don't know. It could get more advanced in the future. Maybe you could, but like at this stage, like people give AI and machine learning a lot of credit, where it's not really. It's not like
it's a tool that needs to be used by people who knows its limitations.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so let me try and see if I understand your black box, the black box thinking concept, right? Okay, in the case of Amazon, right, the black box, the training data you put in is 10 years of human reviewed resumes. Humans have reviewed it, right? You put it in, you've trained it on that sort of data, and these are resumes. So they get whatever characteristics that they're going to find on the resumes. I mean, the computer finds whatever, like, right? Is the computer the right word? They pick up the pattern. So what I'm saying is, what I struggle to understand, right? If you put 100 new cases in, and it does skew towards men. For me, that's like, okay, there's nothing wrong. I think we established there's nothing wrong with the machine. It's only it only outputs based on what you train it to do. So what I'm trying to understand is, like, now are we shifting that blame from the machine to the training data?
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother, he's gone.
Okay. Am I okay to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Now, are we just sort of like shifting that blame? Now we're just speculating on on the decision, on the training data in the first place, right? And we're calling that. Am I understanding correctly that we're assuming that there's some subconscious bias in that caused it to skew towards men?
Yeah. So it could be subconscious. It could be probably conscious. There's probably a lot of conscious like decision making there where people might have picked men, and there's probably not just one like hire. Obviously, there's going to be like loads of people, and so I think there's a lot of things that you need to consider there, right? First of all, how many women were applying for that role? Probably a lot less. Okay, in my opinion. So if you look at the historical stuff, there's probably more men applying for that job in general than women in that time. And then again, you have to think about, well, maybe like the people that were actually accepting the applications were maybe picking the men over the women for some reason, even if they had. So if you think about it, the machine will also have other attributes like the achievements, the, skills. What school you went to, blah, 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 all of that other stuff. And like, if you had two applicants that had the same resume, but maybe one was male, one was female, then why would the machine skew towards the men, I guess? Or why would it disregard women completely, like completely cut them out and then just stick to male applicants?
I don't know I don't know the numbers on that. Like the way you put it is like the machine doesn't even, like, there's no representation of women at all in the results. I think the machine learned at some point that, well, I'm just going to completely exclude women as like a fact, think about it as an attribute, like whatever. It's like, let's just stick to this attribute and like forget this attribute. And even when they removed the attribute, right? So they took out gender. They put in the machine decided based off of certain words that we use in mail applications, because obviously if you think about it, it's like you're doing it blindfolded. You can't see the applications, and then the machine has to pick up on these patterns from mail applications and say, oh, a lot of mail applications have this word, so I'm going to stick with this word. You know what I mean? Yeah, but that's I think that's what I have a contention with. It's like, okay, you see these words, and these words are in resumes that generally lead to people that perform better, right? But perform better is not probably the right objective. They were hired, right? Okay, go on. Maybe it doesn't look into performance. They were hired. So I'm just like, why would you immediately take the fact that, why would you choose to relate it to the fact that these words just happen to come up in male applicants rather than maybe that these words actually represented people that were better? You know, it's like there's two causes you can assign to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, in my head, right, I think that the end goal is like that person was hired.
Okay.
Like at the end of it, right? So I'm not too sure about performance. I don't think, maybe they had some sort of objective where it's like, did they perform well in their job, like after they were hired, blah, blah, blah. They probably would have had something like that, right? So yeah, I guess there's that. So that could obviously, you could make the assumption as well that, oh yeah, those words might mean that the applicant is better and they got hired and they did better. But then at the same time, for some reason it picked, so like once that gendered thing got removed, it had to find something else to like figure out why it was skewed towards certain applications.
Mm-hmm. And now you can take gender completely out of the question.
Yeah, so completely take it out. And obviously, when you think of machine learning, you have to think that this machine's going to pick up on like everything, even things that you wouldn't notice as a human.
It's like the number of commas that are in this resume.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This person used a lot more of these certain words because they're like male or something. I don't know. But it'll pick up on really weird nuances, and they're not necessarily a good thing. So there's a lot of debate about how machines get trained. So if you give it too much training data, right? If you give it like a lot of training data, it's going to be worse at predicting.
Wait, how does that make
theory of like how machine learnings predict things, but like basically you have to give it enough, like the right amount of training data as well. That training data has to be of good quality in order to like produce the best results, right?
Okay.
Because if you give it too much, it'll start picking up on really weird like crap that is really like starts making weird links. But then, and you can see this in other examples. I need to try and find some stuff on this.
But then you can just say, I mean, like, maybe the problem isn't the machine, because the machine is just doing what it's meant to do, right? The problem is that we think it's weird, whereas actually it's something that, you know, is representative and is effective.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's basically, I'm just reading this thing. It's like having lots of training data doesn't inherently harm your model, but it makes you, so it takes your model longer to train, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I guess overfitting is the thing that, there's this thing called overfitting. So basically if you have too much, then your machine will predict too specifically. So you might have one application, it won't like have a variety of good applicants, it'll just specifically just do one, like kind of pigeonhole it into a really specific kind of thing, and it will reject a lot more people, if you get what I mean.
So what it will do, it will just minimize, it will focus on the most important things. And I guess
it'll put too much focus on those attributes, I guess. You can't have too many attributes because then it'll like get confused and stuff, and like obviously not every applicant's going to have every attribute, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So okay, let's say for example you have more importance on like these schools over these schools, and then you have more importance on like these like kind of these languages over these languages that the person knows for the job. And like you just keep going on, like you specify too much, and then you give it loads of data, it will literally pigeonhole like what it wants from the applicant a lot more than it would have before, I guess, if you had maybe less attributes. So we took away gender or something like that. So it should do better, but then it might pick up on all these other patterns.
Okay. What would a good learning algorithm do in the Amazon case for you? Like,
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is like a bit controversial. Not controversial, but like it's debatable. But I just think that it's not a good way to apply machine learning in that context in applications, right?
When it comes to humans.
Yeah, when it comes to humans, because okay, first of all, like you want to obviously diversify, well, not diversify in terms of like race and gender and all that, just in terms of experience. Maybe you want someone from like an underprivileged school to like join your company that could be a lot more suited to the role or maybe do a lot better than certain people from like better schools as well. So there's like a lot of variation. And I think if you enhance the variety of experiences in your application process, then that will benefit the company more than having a certain kind of mold that the machine might like kind of produce.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you like leave a machine to just do the whole thing, or like just kind of pigeonhole these out, you're going to lose out on a lot of like really people that could have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's gender, maybe even if it's race and if it's like other stuff like that. But I think just the variety of experiences to represent in the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the biggest risk when you use these types of machines to like filter people, I guess.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really quantify people, right? You can't distill them into like just a certain range of characteristics. I mean, people argue that you can use personality tests, but I mean that only shows so much about a person, right?
I guess it's just really dangerous if we had a future where we're really relying on like machine learning as like things to decide people or like rate people. I mean, I don't know if you've heard in like China, there's like this thing where it's kind of like that Black Mirror episode, like where you have a rating and people like kind of give you ratings, like you're an Uber driver type of thing. And people, when they interact with you, like rate you and stuff. That's kind of happening in China a little bit, where like you have a rating and then depending on that, you can get certain like things.
And then if you jaywalk, you get deducted.
If you're like a convict maybe or something like that, then you kind of get ostracized and like, oh yeah, like they don't deserve like healthcare, these things like blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's like a point system. And I think that's just really dangerous in a way, because I think everyone has different experiences. And even if you're like an ex-convict, for example, like that does lots of harm on you trying to find a job in the future as well. And if you had like a machine learning algorithm that says, okay, let's just like based on the historical data of who we've taken on, and think about it this way, like why do we have to like machine learning is based on all the historical data from the past. Maybe the past wasn't great and maybe we didn't do a good job then. You know what I mean? Like in that context, maybe we weren't hiring the right people, and maybe there needs to be a variety of people, like it needs to be different types of experiences and stuff. So I think it's that specific case, like that case study for that hiring process is just not a good application of machine learning.
I think I want to push back a little because I think currently in this climate there's this almost overarching push towards diversity, and I think when you have results that you know do show that perhaps this certain race or this certain gender do not necessarily perform as well, as in like it's skewed in one direction, people tend to just immediately point that out to be the cause of that to be something inherently oppressive. And to me, that's just like, okay, what you've done there is that, okay, in the Amazon case, this is like on the broad view, we've talked about it in detail, but on the broad view, this just highlights to me is like, okay, what you've what you've done is that you've gone in with a perspective that you should see 50% male, 50% female, right? That's what generally people want to see, right? And it's like, okay, when you get data based on training that we can discuss its validity, but like, and you see that it's not 50% male, 50% female, it's like, now the next step would be to adjust that learning process, that machine learning process, to actually what the machine has done is that it's told you what's best, right? What's best, but like these are the optimal results. And what you want to do after that is like, you want to get into that and actually tweak it so that you see what you want to see. You want to see a 50% male, 50% female. And I think the danger of like, things that come with diversity is that they don't allow for, some things just to generally just skew in whatever natural direction that they will. Like, for example, in Amazon, I think this is a perfectly valid point. Maybe the training data isn't good enough, but let's assume it is, right? And I think people should be willing to accept that if the results skew in favor, it doesn't even have to be gender. It could be like height for some reason, right? I think people will have to, they need to be able to accept that is not necessarily because of discrimination. It's just because of inherently that is the truth. The machine learning is telling you the truth, and I don't think there's enough debate or discussion around that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I get where you're coming from, right? But I think the issue in that type of kind of thinking is that you kind of end up giving that kind of group a certain not label, but like kind of characteristics, I guess. So I think personally, like, every human has certain set of experiences, right? And that varies from everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, one woman will have a different experience to another woman, and like generally where you grow up, like, this is how society molds you, blah blah blah, that shapes how you are, how you adapt, like how you perform in certain things, right? So I guess if we put it down to things like gender and stuff, that doesn't say too much about how inherently you can perform in certain tasks, I guess, right? If you get what I mean.
How inherently you can perform in certain tasks.
Like, because I am from this part of the world, or like I am this type of person. Yeah, but maybe that culture, maybe that experience of living in that culture will affect how you perform in something, if you get what I mean. Like, if you're coming from East Asia, the way you've grown up and the cultural experience you've had influences how you perform in something, right? Mm-hmm. You get what I mean?
Okay.
But inherently being Asian, maybe you grew up in a certain different area, maybe you had a whole different set of experiences from someone who's generally fitting into that mold, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess like the danger with machine learning, like kind of using those characteristics, and like that disregards the whole experience. You're kind of putting the label on it, but it doesn't say much about the experience of that person, if you get what I mean.
Okay, maybe expand on that a little.
Yeah, okay. So like, you could say, let's hire more Asian people because they're better at coding or they're better at maths and blah, blah, blah. There's all these stereotypes, right? So like a lot of jobs might, I'm not sure, but like maybe let's say, for example, the job prefers that for a certain role. And then you have someone that has a different experience. They might still be Asian, but they've had a different childhood. They've had a different experience growing up. It's not similar to like the general mold
of Asians.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's really hard you can't really say based on like race or like gender, for example. Like you could have a female that has a completely different upbringing. Maybe they're like, maybe they didn't have many girly kind of things in society, like saying, oh yeah, like you should do this, blah, blah, blah. maybe they've had like a separate kind of experience that they've had a lot of training in certain things, or like they've done a lot of other stuff that might make them better suited to a role. But then that kind of experience doesn't get reflected in their gender, for example, or that experience doesn't get reflected in their race. You know what I mean?
Wait, what do you mean by agenda? It doesn't get reflected in their agenda?
In their gender.
Oh, gender, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It sounds similar. But yeah, so like if you think about it, that's not a good indicator of what your potential to perform is. And I think there's better ways to kind of judge that, if you get what I mean.
I'm still struggling to understand a little. Okay.
I guess like I'm trying to think of like a good example.
I'm sorry to like.
But yeah, no. Let's talk about diversity, right? Let's talk about diversity.
Let's talk about diversity.
I personally don't think diversity is like the right word, and I don't think it's like the right answer to a lot of these issues that have been discussed. Right? You shouldn't just have to have diversity for the sake of it. You know what I mean? Like just to say,
I agree with that.
I've got like one person from here, one female, I've got one black person.
Like
here we go.
Every university advert is like, oh, we got a black guy, we got a Chinese guy, we got a Pakistani guy.
Like you don't want that. Like you don't want to have just like this stock photo representation. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to call it. But like, I think the best thing to think of is representation, right? You want people to represent people's experience.
Okay.
And it's very hard to do because I've just discussed, like, you know, we live in a globalized world now, and obviously people can have very, like, let's like take us, for example. We've lived in another country in Doha, and we consider ourselves like maybe international students. How do we reflect that experience based off of like attributes like our race and our gender and things like that? You get what I mean?
All right. So your point is like
consider yourself completely like Malaysian. If someone looked at you and said, "Oh, this guy's Malaysian. He has the same kind of attributes as all these other people from Malaysia that lived there their whole life," and things like that.
So you're worried about stereotyping, whether it's like this guy is one thing, that means everything else applies for this guy. Exactly.
And that's what a machine will kind of do, right? When it uses an attribute like gender or race. And gender is a big one because that's like 50% of the population, another 50% of the population. So like, I guess the thing I'm saying is that like we need representation. And I think representation is super important in technology because that's going to be like what half of like it's going to be what most of the humanity is going to be using in the next 10 years or whatever. And I think whoever designs that and whoever has an input in that has to come from a variety of backgrounds.
Do
you get what I mean? Yeah. So you need to have that representation of experiences. So like, for example, an iPhone, they made these huge iPhones, right? Like recently, they've just made them bigger, right? Because they think everyone wants a bigger screen. Ergonomically, like, oh yeah, men might have a bigger hand, for example, and it's easier for them to use like a huge phone, right? But then they didn't take into account, like female hands are generally smaller, so like you might not want like a huge iPhone. So they had to release a smaller version, right? So I think in terms of like design, in terms of also like the way that interfaces are designed, the way like
machine learning is designed as well when it comes to like facial recognition, voice recognition.
Yeah, it's like you need to have representation. And I think it's important for females to also be a part of like the tech environment, especially in Amazon. They're like taking over the world. Amazon is like huge now, and they need to have like enough people representing different facets of life. And when I say representation, I also mean like, you know, socio-economic background. So like maybe coming from a poorer part of like a poorer background in the past, that's also very important to like representing that sector, right?
Is it a moral obligation on a company to do that though?
But the thing is, right, this is what I say a lot, and like JP Morgan does this a lot as well, where they say it brings business benefits to have diversity and representation, which also kind of inevitably becomes diversity. because you're technically representing your customer, you're representing your client, which ends up benefiting you because that part of like the population will generally end up like maybe giving you more profit and also like helping you better your product, I guess. So just having different variety of people producing that product. So like if you're designing something, having all that input for like certain groups of people is going to be super important to serve that community.
Yeah. And it's also like financially and economically probably the best thing to do as well. Like it just in terms of like voice recognition, if you want more customers, then, you know, expand your market and like have them understand Scottish English at least.
Exactly. If you compensate for certain parts of society, you're going to benefit in the end. So it's a win-win. And there's no reason why you shouldn't want that, I guess. And I think what people, when they're hiring and they want diversity and blah, 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 what people miss out on is that you need to start from the root of the problem. So like people in school obviously kind of make these decisions on what they want to go into, blah, blah, blah. And like a lot of the time, like especially women, they won't consider like STEM as an option because of kind of what people have told them or what they've heard from people or what their parents tell them, blah, blah, blah. So I think if you start at that age range, which is what JP Morgan does a lot of, to encourage people to get into certain things at a young age, because that's when you're most impressionable and like you could decide where you want to kind of put your focus on.
I want to talk about this a bit because like the way I see it, right, is this gonna be a bit of a contrast to your view, right? There are you can boil it down to two things that affect. I mean, since we're talking about career choice, let's talk about career choice, right? So there are two things that affect your the potential career that you go down. There's, you know, biological things that are, you know, innate within you, and then there are let's just call it social and cultural, or sociocultural, right? And it seems to me like you're putting a lot of weight onto the sociocultural the hand,
Aspect.
right? Aspect.
Yeah.
Yes. You're putting a lot of weight on the sociocultural aspect. What people don't like to hear is like, okay, right. Okay, what JP Morgan seems to be doing is something that I would agree with. Like what they're focusing. Okay. Have you heard of equality of opportunity and equality of outcome?
Yeah, I think I've vaguely heard of that, but go ahead and tell me again.
Okay. So equality of outcome is basically, okay, say there's one problem, right? You're looking at the outcome is looking at the end. Opportunity is looking at the beginning, right? You can look at something like, you know, STEM, for example. You can look at the outcome, right? And you can see, you know, maybe that is skewed 70-30 towards men, right? And then you can point that out and be like, you know what, that's unequal. The outcome is unequal, therefore there is oppression there. It needs to be. It comes with a inherent presupposition that it needs to be 50-50, and anything that isn't representative of that is unfair. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because that doesn't allow for, you know, whether it is biological differences or sociocultural differences. I mean, in the same way as like, if you look at nursing, right, it's like it skews hugely towards females, towards in favor of females and males. And there's another way you can do it, where you can look at equality of opportunity, where what you're saying is, okay, all the opportunities are open for you. You can be whatever you want, all right? So there's two ways you can look at it. You can either look at it from the root or from the I don't know what the word is, end. From the root or the end. Yeah. And I believe in the equality of the opportunity, that what you should be able to do whatever you want. And I believe in that because it will lead to differences in the outcome. It will not be 50-50 at the end, and I think that's exactly. That's what I have a lot of problems with people that say things like certain fields are not equal, right, or unfair. So you know what's a really interesting case study, right? So if you were to rank all the countries in terms of,
Just my brother. He's gone now.
Am I okay? Am I okay to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you were to rank all the countries in terms of how egalitarian they are and like how equal the opportunities are for males and females, right? What happens is that at the bottom end you'll have underdeveloped countries, and at the top, basically the best case is Scandinavia, right? Scandinavia has done the most to allow basically whatever gender you are, you're allowed to pursue whatever career you want, right? And what you would expect, right, since there are two aspects, right, sociocultural and biological, right? So what you're doing is that you're removing all the sociocultural pressures, because in Scandinavia you're allowed to do whatever you want, right? What you would expect is that, what people want to expect is that it becomes 50-50 if they're given all the opportunity that they want. But what happens is that those differences in STEM and in nursing actually gets amplified.
Really?
Yes. So that in my opinion, that's like blew my mind. It's like, what?
That's pretty interesting.
Right. So just like if you want to argue in favor of like sociocultural, like, you know, depending on like the experiences you come from and where you can, like the country you grew up from, like that case study, it goes to argue that it's not. If anything, the sociocultural things they limit you. Is that the right word? Is that the right aspect? They go in favor of 50-50 rather than against 50-50.
I guess, I don't know. I'd have to look into that case study specifically. There probably are some reasons that has happened. Probably a lot of different, I don't know, you have to take into account a lot of factors, I guess. But yeah, I agree about, like, you know, nursing and stuff. That's also very in favor of women, and like subjects like psychology has also been very skewed towards women in terms of like who picks psychology. But I would argue that I would prefer that we had more representation in both of those fields. So like psychology, you'd want more men to study it, right? Because then that would mean more male psychologists, which means that you might have more representation to have male therapy, or like maybe males might feel more comfortable having that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, but I also think like the danger of that is that it comes with, you know, there are some lawsuits where they're actually like, I think like they want to see more Latinos or more black men, to the point where they're actually discriminating against white people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen those, but I think that's just like, you know, like when you have a certain privilege and a lot of opportunities been given to you and for a long time, it feels like you have lost out when it suddenly becomes more equal, I guess. And I don't think that those people that got the job were any less qualified, if you know what I mean. So if you actually look at the people that were picked maybe over someone that was white, and maybe they were equal in opportunity, and maybe the company decided, let's just pick the minority, because even though they're equal, let's just pick the minority because we don't have as many minorities. And I think that's fair, because it helps the company in the end represent that group.
But that comes with the assumption that everything else being equal, like their abilities being equal.
Yeah, but in this, when you take it into context, like where we are in terms of like our social kind of context and stuff, we need to increase. I'd say like a company, if you're looking at it in the perspective of a company, they want to better improve their like what they deliver to people, and in order to do that, you need to also
have a field of experience. I think that's what you keep coming back to.
Yes, that's the way I like to describe it, because it kind of incorporates gender, race, and everything else that you don't probably think about. And I think the thing with the reason people get so like heated over things like race and gender is because they're the most visual, they're the most like apparent kind of ways to differentiate people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like in terms of police brutality recently, we've seen all the protests because of discrimination based on like if like a black person gets shot more by the police, for example, that is like something that needs to be fixed, obviously. And like when you think of that context in terms of like job applications, then yeah, there are like visual kind of biases in those cases where like if you know someone's race, if you know someone's like gender, there have been a lot of bias in the past. So in order to compensate for that and to fix that, that's why all of these kind of programs happen where people try to hire more people like that. But I think in order to solve the root, like that's a really good start and it's like a quick fix to the problem. And that's why you see a lot more people having these outreach programs and blah, 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 and like hiring more women. And even myself, like I got onto like a scholarship that was basically women in tech. So my scholarship personally was also like a female one, but it was also inclusive of males. So men could apply for that scholarship too.
But be under the Women in Tech scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, like if you actually read it, it says underneath, open to everyone, like anyone can apply. And there was one guy on my scholarship as well in the Women in Tech scholarship.
Okay.
So like the thing that they said, right, was that we don't want to discourage men to apply. We wanted to call it Women in Tech to encourage females to apply, which obviously makes more females apply for the thing. And they got lots more applications for that. And they didn't have as many male applications. And they were like, well, you could have applied still, like it was still open to you. But they're like, oh, but it said women in tech, so we didn't want to apply. So it kind of goes down to like your like how you think of things as well. Like even though it said women, you could have looked into it and thought, okay, maybe I could try. Like they can't discriminate on gender in order to apply for that.
Can you not?
You're not allowed to.
So even though, I mean that's to me that seems like sort of like just like a marketing thing. It's like
but literally it comes down to just marketing. Like they just wanted to encourage females to apply to them roles, and it worked, right? Because more females did apply for that, and less males applied, even though it was open to both genders.
I think this kind of like I agree with that because that's working more on the opportunity. Is like if women want to go into tech, they have the opportunity to, and
I know there's like there's loads of things to take into consideration. Like maybe women don't want to apply for it; they just feel like it's not something for them, or like maybe they just want to have a stereotypical kind of life, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to just be a housewife. Like there's nothing. It's absolutely fine,
The way you put it, stereotypical kind of life. Oof.
I mean, it is a stereotype, and it's like a pretty, well-known one as well. So I don't know. I think the issue with this like new feminism is that it does kind of demonize like old kind of traditional ways of living as well, which I think is also wrong. So I think we should have equal opportunity, like you said. Like we should have the opportunity to do both. If someone wanted to do something like go into STEM, or if someone wanted to just be at home and take care of people, then that should be allowed. But then I'd also argue that it should be the case for men as well. If you're going to give equal opportunity for women, then we need to give the same amount of opportunity for men to stay at home and, be a stay-at-home dad. Like you don't hear of that often, and things like having a parental leave would help that. And even giving males like a boost in terms of having a dad parental leave, or like having special benefits for a male to stay at home might encourage more men to stay home.
Yeah. And this,
I mean, it works both ways. You need to you do need to help the society change and mold and shift in the future, because it does change. And we live a completely different life to how it was 100 years ago. Like society was completely different, and it does make those differences when you look into the future.
I think we're both in agreement, and I think things that you mentioned is in terms of favor, fighting on the side of men is you got to give them opportunity for the paternal leave if they want to, and these things just come under that they need to have the opportunity to do those things.
Yeah, and I do understand, like, there's loads of fears about how we're going to have homemakers in the future if, like, you know, if we're lifting women up and giving them more opportunities in work, right? And that's been happening in, like, all the Western countries. But the issue is I think the issue is actually how we value female attributes as well, like just being at home. Like, I think that should have a lot of value. Like, there should be a lot more benefits to being a stay-at-home parent when there's literally no benefits to you to stay at home and take care of your kid and like raise a future generation. There should be a lot more in favor of you to do that. And like, I think you should be rewarded the way that people that work are rewarded to do that, if you get what I mean. Like, society needs to put those two things at the same level and have people perceive them as like both viable life choices. You know what I mean? If anything,
being the stereotypical stay-at-home mom, say you have 3 kids, and those 3 kids turn out to be a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer. That's like
exactly.
That's 3 times the impact you could have had by yourself.
Yeah, and I think that opportunity should be given to both women and men. If like maybe the female wants to work, maybe the guy doesn't. I don't know. Like, he might want to stay at home as well. I don't think society should look down on that. It should actually be encouraging of like that choice as well. So I don't know, it's going to take a long time for it to change, and it's not going to happen like overnight, obviously. So you just kind of have to go with whatever's kind of happening right now. But yeah.
But at the same time, like I would still want society to be able to accept that if you do implement all these measures, right, opportunity, everyone can do whatever they want. I would still probably expect more women to stay at home than men. Right?
Yeah, maybe that will be the case. You don't know, but like, I think that what you're describing, like, yeah, equal opportunity, but then I guess being rewarded for is different. You get the opportunity, but like, will society reward you more if you're a stay-at-home like parent, or if you're a working person? Like, things like that, you know what I mean? And like the way that bankers and like, I don't know, there's a lot of inequality happening in the world right now. And if you look at like the case of maybe people that work in big banks and traders and blah, 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 people that invest in stocks, they get rewarded like extortionately more than people that work like in normal jobs and like produce things. So if you look at like the financial crisis, for example, like, and like you look at who the government ended up bailing out, they ended up bailing out like the big banks. They ended up bailing out like the people working at the top instead of a similar solution to that problem would be bailing out the people that had mortgage, like they had defaulted mortgages. I mean, you know how the financial crisis happened, like there was a bunch of mortgages that got defaulted, and then that caused a whole ripple effect on all these bonds and stuff. If they'd bailed out like the lowest of society, it would have solved the problem. But they rewarded the people at the top, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think whoever, like the government needs to have like a bit more of they need to put more value on certain parts of society in order to create that comfort and like going for these equal opportunities. So it's a very complicated issue in terms of like, there's not ever going to be true equality, if you get what I mean. Like, obviously there are natural, like, I guess, inclinations to certain things. Like, yeah, females are seen as more nurturing. They'll go into nursing. They'll become like, but then society rewards doctors over nurses because they're seen as more knowledgeable. They're seen as more expert. And a lot of males are in that field, right?
Yeah.
So like, but nurses do a lot of heavy lifting. They like have to restrain violent patients. Sometimes they have to like clean up vomit. They have to like,
but not even
change
that.
someone's diapers if they're like overaged and wetting themselves. Like, I've seen nurses in action. It's terrible. Like how, and like I could go into a whole separate discussion about like nurses in the NHS and like minorities and how like they were put on the front lines and stuff in coronavirus. I think even coronavirus, if you look at that, it literally amplifies all of the inequalities that exist right now anyway.
What do you mean?
like I think something like this pandemic actually really like kind of takes the veil off of what like who the government values and who like actually gets hit the hardest
Okay.
by the
So,
pandemic. So like in the UK, for example, like Black, Asian, and minority communities are actually more likely, like 4 times more likely to die from coronavirus than a white person.
why is that? Is that down to the
Right.
government?
So like, why is that, right? So that's like the kind of the study that people have to. I think they did a study recently, and I think,
Is
in
it?
my opinion, I'd say like a lot more of those communities are in like frontline jobs. So like
Mm,
maybe food services and like
yeah. Okay.
deliveries, like Uber drivers, nurses. There's a lot of minorities that work in the NHS. But then you have to also think like, okay, let's take that into account. Let's like redo the study. And even after they did that, there was still some difference, right? And what does that come down to? There must be also like some conscious or even subconscious bias when it comes to who they put on the front lines to like the coronavirus wards and things like that, right?
Uh, we could say that is subconscious bias, but I think like with your example of those frontline workers, I think it's just by virtue of the fact that most of the frontline workers are probably immigrants, maybe second or third generation, and
Yeah,
they
so like it's a lot
they
deeper than what
they,
people think,
they
right?
don't necessarily have the opportunity to get to those positions that are not as affected um, as the white male might. Um, so yeah, like you
Exactly.
said, it's a lot deeper, and unless the coronavirus is racist, I don't
Yeah,
know.
which is not true because they did the tests.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I mean they did check like maybe there's something people think that there's inherent differences if for different races, which is completely untrue, right? There's no difference to how you react to coronavirus if you're like Asian or if you're white, you know what I mean?
What if you're like
So,
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
yeah. God. Oh my God. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But it seems like most of the difference they call the comorbidities, right? Whether you're obese, or whether you have heart disease, or whether you're diabetic, those things
Yeah.
make a difference.
And then people
Um,
argue, oh, maybe like brown people, like Asians, have worse diets, so that's why they have more of these diseases. And I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe to an extent you could say culture affects how like different you are, but like also even if you take that into account, like I think there's still some like even if it's not like oh someone's made a conscious decision like yeah you have to work here and you're not doing this blah 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 and that exists and it might just be like a minority I guess of like those types of cases where someone's actually discriminated but then I think the structural issue is like why are so many immigrants doing the dirty work in terms of doing the frontline jobs and like why are most of them and then they still get treated the worst even if they're lifting the most weight you know what I mean and like they try and clap for key workers here and like every Thursday they're like clapping for them and stuff but what have you done to reward them as a government like have you actually compensated them have you given them more money have you like
I thought they were
benefited them in any way what shape or form
I thought they were making them pay for their parking again.
Yeah, I know. And it's such a slap in the face for people that work in like as doctors and nurses.
By the way, you can swear on this podcast. Like I don't care.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I would have, but
Yeah, I was
it
like,
takes a lot more swear words to even describe.
I like talking to you because like I think with every topic you seem to you seem to like relate it back to the human. I think that's a very admirable quality to have where you're like, okay, where we're talking about machine learning and then you go back to like, okay, yeah, but that's not taking into account the experiences of the person. They could be different. You have to look into all these things that you can't necessarily quantify. And then like just talking about diversity and the coronavirus, I just appreciate that. It's really nice.
It all goes back to it. It's just that's how I see it. But yeah.
Yeah. What have you been up to otherwise?
Oh, I mean, other than that, like just watching my shows, like lots of animes and K-dramas. But yeah, like I said, but I also got roller skates recently.
Oof.
So
you're gonna be one of those cool girls. I don't know. I don't.
Falling on my butt a lot, so not really. I haven't even like shared this with. You're the first person that knows I have roller skates right now, so.
Yes, and all my.
I've been doing it in secret with my brother because he has a skateboard too. So we're gonna try and become pros secretly, and then.
And then just like get a viral Instagram video. It's like, what? Meshaal is rollerblading?
Exactly.
I mean, as cool as you can have rollerblade be, I guess. Where do you see... Why did you pick math? That's what I'm curious in.
Okay, this is a good question. So like, you know, out of all the subjects that I was like looking at, I don't know what it is, but like maths just seems like the ultimate form of truth, if you get what I mean.
Oh,
it's
that's
like you can't even like argue it. You can't really. Maths is maths, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have any biases, doesn't have any of this other crap. It's just literally just like it is what it is. It's just describing what like works and what doesn't. And it's very like, I guess, rigid. I mean, not rigid, but it's like very, very like structured, and there's nothing you can really like. It's a very logical subject, obviously, but there's no like room for kind of speculation like there is in other sciences. So like physics, there's loads of speculation, and like even chemistry. I mean, chemistry to an extent, whatever, but like math is literally the root of all of this. All the other sciences is the root of like kind of how the universe even functions. You know what I mean? Like even physics, if you come down to it, it's just maths. And like all the speculation is where the maths can't like, you know, help you there. You know what I mean?
I think that's really interesting. The fact, I mean, okay, math in itself is like, I get people find it beautiful. To me, it's just like a tool that I use sometimes when I need to. But what I find interesting with your, the fact that you chose to study maths is that it's such a logical, like absolute subject, right? At least the mainstream conception of it is that it's absolute. You need to have proofs. You need to have evidences. There's like a right way to do things. There's a wrong way to do things. And that is just completely against what I said before, where you seem to be, you seem to like just the humans. And humans are like the exact opposite of something like that. And I just find that really...
Yeah. I'm a bit of a hypocrite, I guess. No, not a hypocrite, but like, yeah, it's a bit of a contradiction. But at the same time, I think like if there's one thing, like I wouldn't want to study something with so many like I feel like with maths, it's like a safe space because you know that it just doesn't really affect things. It doesn't really do much. It just does what it needs to do. And like you have control over that. But like with humans, it's like, I can go on about like I'm really interested in learning about all the other stuff like to do with like society and stuff, and I think it's interesting, but at the same time there's no absolute right or wrong in terms of when you talk about solutions and things like that. And like I think with maths it's like kind of its own thing, and it's just being neutral. It's the most neutral thing you could kind of study.
I really never understood that, to be honest, and I hope that you can like clear this up for me. Is like I've gotten into some discussions with people about like whether, you know, is math part of the universe and are we just discovering it, or is it just a framework that it's a game that we sort of set the rules for and then apply it to the universe, and you know we've seen that it works. So I've never really understood like what do you think about that?
Okay. You got to read my personal statement when I was applying for uni because I'm talentless. But like, yeah. So I studied like English and maths at A level, right? And everyone's like, "Why the hell are you doing those two? It's just what are you doing?" Like my English teacher wanted me to study English at uni as well. But yeah, basically, maths is just the language in which we describe the universe.
That's okay. That one sentence was probably the clearest way anyone has ever explained it to me.
Yeah, you're just becoming fluent in the universe. But
Oh wow.
like I think it's the best way to describe phenomena that's happening around you and like patterns and stuff. There's something so abstract. Like I didn't even realize until I actually went to university and did like pure maths and stuff. But it's so abstract yet so concrete, if you get what I mean. Like
I have no
there's
idea
a
what
thing
you
called
mean.
group theory in algebra. Like it goes wild. Like uni maths goes wild. Okay, so like there's this thing that is used in algebra to like describe everything. So there's like set theory, which is like you have different sets of things. So like you have the natural numbers, the real numbers, imaginary, blah blah blah, and then you go into more details of describe your own sets, and they have certain rules and groups and stuff, and that's how like they function based off of a set of axioms. So like that to me is just like, whoa, you just describe something so specifically. Yeah, it like kind of it covers so much. You know what I mean? Like abstract algebra. It's like sets could be anything. It could be the set of sets. It could work on itself and stuff. Like there's just all these weird stuff, like, you know, in math that you're just like, wow, okay, that makes so much sense, but it's so abstract. And that's why you can't apply it to a lot of stuff. So like the more abstract it gets and the more like pure it gets, the less you can actually see where that applies to a real world situation, because there's so many factors that affect it. So then you can't end up applying it because there's all these other things that like ruin the conditions.
Okay. How does that present itself in the real world? Is like what I guess the
best
question.
Application of maths that I've seen is in computer science and in technology, because that's where you can actually kind of go a bit more ham with stuff. And like, so for example, let me just like, there's machine learning, right? There's actually this method of, so when you're picking Netflix shows, right, there's this recommendations list.
Yep.
And when you pick things on Amazon, you get recommendations. That logic is based off of a maths concept called matrix. What was it called?
Matrix 2 Reloaded.
No, there's a word.
Matrix evolution.
Jacobian matrices. So basically, you have a matrix, and then there's like missing. So matrix is just like a square of numbers, like blah, blah. So you have like missing kind of values, and then you can work out what those values are using this certain type of logic in maths. So if you think of that matrix as like shows, so you watch these shows. Now we can use this logic to kind of predict other shows that's similar.
But wouldn't that? So what is it actually comparing? Like when you say shows that are similar, somehow they have to distill those shows somehow into certain characteristics.
Yeah, so it's kind of like machine learning, I think. Hold on, let me just search recommender systems. I saw this when I was working at JP because we had a hackathon.
Yes.
And someone had this idea that you can apply this same logic to something in a financial situation, which could happen in the future. But basically, like, yeah, I guess it kind of has an algorithm where it has all these attributes, and there's like a black box model. It's basically the model so when you talk about machine learning, a lot of people talk about black box models because they don't understand what the model is.
Okay.
And it's like a very maths concept that you throw it into that, and then it comes out with something. This is kind of like that. It uses this Jacobian matrix theory where you work backwards to find what the missing values were in that matrix based off of some other values in that theory. And that can be applied to like Netflix shows, for example, or maybe even products. And those products have like a set of, I'll call it metadata, right? Every product has like, oh, this is what it falls under, this category, and like this price range maybe, or this, like all these attributes or metadata, whatever. So that it uses those like to figure out the missing ones. So maybe there's like a show in this category with this certain rating or this theme, and then that kind of like works in that matrix of things. I guess if you think about each row and each column as a separate attribute,
Yeah.
then you can fill the blanks in.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about it practically. It's going to be like, how much can you actually distill a movie? It's like, okay, what are you going to be like? Action, guns, leather suits.
Well, I think it depends on how good your data is, right? So, like, I think with Amazon and Netflix, there's probably a lot of hidden data about that show that they don't show you.
No,
Like, oh, this show has this, or this actor was in there, and this theme is in there, or like this word relates to this show.
Yeah, but I mean, that relates to like humans as well, because, okay, let me explain how that relates to humans, because those things are just so subjective. It's like, I don't think you can really...
Well, that's why they're called recommendations. Some of them can be wild and like weird, and you might not like them, but they're there, right?
It's interesting that you mentioned Netflix recommendations, because like I recently read something in a book, right, where what I read that they did was that they ran into this exact problem which I'm talking about. Is like, how do you have these characteristics that you can apply to different movies, right? Where it's like, for people it's like gender, race. For movies, what are they? You can only tell so much.
They're created by humans.
Yeah, they're created by humans, but the way that they did it, they got around it, is that they didn't actually like distill the movie itself. What they did is compared what you watched to similar people who have watched the same things as you, right?
Yes.
And then that's what they did.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to mention that point. That's really important. That's the difference between the Amazon recommendations and the Netflix ones. The Netflix ones are based on what other people have also done.
Yeah. Okay.
So people that watched your show might have watched this show and liked it as well, or gave it a good review.
That seems like so much more computationally less intensive.
Yeah, but that's based on training data. So like let's look at what all these people that watch exactly the same show as you, and maybe what rating they gave it. What did they watch? And then they come up, and there's loads of trends there, obviously. And then with Amazon products, the thing that they use for Amazon products, maybe they don't have a rating, or maybe someone hasn't bought it yet, but they'll use the attributes that I was talking about for that product, and that works better for like, shopping websites.
Things I guess things that are easily categorized, more easily categorized than something like a movie or a TV show.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right there that I think Netflix does use more like people's preferences and like comparing it with other people. And then I guess that tells you more about humans, right? Because like, oh, why would that person like all of these weird things? And like, why am I recommended all of these really specific, but really like YouTube recommendation can be wild sometimes, right? And you think, wow, like this is something that I really enjoy, but I never thought of,
Yeah. I guess it'd be interesting to like test this by sheer volume, right? Say you have 1 million devices and like, okay, you watch this cat video and then you watch this like really hardcore gore video. It's like, do you think that will in theory influence what other people, when they watch cat videos, they will see these as recommended?
If you do it enough times, because obviously like the amount of users that are on YouTube like is crazy. But yeah, the algorithms there, like, people go on about the algorithms on like social media and YouTube as well. It's all the kind of similar stuff. And like you can consciously change your algorithm by consciously like looking at different content. And I think the scary thing with social media and stuff is like, when it gets politics involved, if you're someone with a more right-wing like attitude, or maybe extremely left-wing, you will only get content that serves you instead of getting like contrasting views. And that's what causes such an extreme polarization in society.
I love that word. I love that word so much.
It's literally like the word that best describes what's going on right now. And obviously when I feel really stupid sometimes when I'm posting on like about these issues. I'm like, most of my followers are probably pretty reasonable people. They're not like going to be voting Trump or anything. So like half of the time it's just, how are you supposed to access those people like on social media? That's why I think there's a lot of people that try to get into those spaces to share content that is not kind of like, that would not be like available for those people usually, because it's like based on recommendations, right? So yeah, I think it's people are missing like the debate from the other side. they're not really talking to people with contrasting views as much anymore.
How do you actively fight against that?
I don't know, like try and watch some right-wing videos or get some news from right-wing sources sometimes and see what it's like. Like I've done it before, and it's helpful for you to understand where they're coming from, and maybe you can better encourage someone to like be more reasonable, I guess.
But the thing with that is that takes a conscious amount of effort. Like you need to want to see the other perspective. And I think that's correct, but that needs to be a conscious effort, and I don't think many people realize that.
Exactly. I agree completely. And honestly, like in my opinion, I prefer to be more middle ground than the middle is nice. Like people should come to the middle. Why are so many people on like extreme ends of the spectrum fighting against each other? Just you can dabble in both and like just understand it both and stuff.
I do it personally in terms of like, I'm very much into like the philosophy, I go into like the existence of God arguments. So it's like, I go to the opposite side to see what they say. And like, I have to like restrain my inner emotions. Like, okay, so I have to listen to what they're saying.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Just, going down those pigeonholes on YouTube, it's just,
But I think it's a healthy thing to do. Like, you don't want your social media to be just an echo chamber.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, if you want to sit here for another like 5 hours, then let's probably end it here because I could go on about anything.
I think with that said, it's probably a good point to end off. It's genuinely been really nice sitting down and talking to you. We really haven't had the opportunity to do it in the past, and it just goes to show there's no harm in reaching out of your like circle of friends to talk about things with people.
Exactly. And it was nice talking to you as well. Like it's a nice change to have interaction, and you're talking about important issues too. So if you have like a discussion point, I think podcasts are really good at getting people to talk with each other, but it's not just like idle chat. It's kind of more like, let's talk about something really heavy or, interesting.
It's been really, really interesting. I think everyone should have their podcast because I can be like, hey, Meshaal, do you want to be on my podcast? Right? Because we're going to talk about some polarizing topics. I really like that. It's been really interesting, and it's been an absolute pleasure. You're I forgot how much I like talking to you. You're just so chill, and not to categorize you in one thing, and not to make you out to be just one characteristic, but it's just nice.
Just label me. It's cool. I was just going off on one.
Chill.
But yeah.
And you actually listen. Just between you and me and everyone that watches this until the end, some people just don't really listen. They just talk, and it's interesting.
It's a two-way street.
All right, but that said, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for having me.
I hope to do this again one day.
For sure.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.